Tonight, I'm going to do a podcast on evil. Over the weekend, I happened to watch a movie on Disney Plus, the name called Veronica Guerin, and it's the true story. It was about a crime journalist who was investigating drug gangs and crime, and she discovered this particularly nasty piece of work, and John Gilligan, he then called when he was outed, he then had her murdered. After the movie, I decided to do a checkup to see how's John doing, and it turns out he's 71 years of age, and he is out, and he is still out and about doing his drug business, importing and exporting drugs into and out of Spain. Um, I wonder, um, what is it that motivates somebody like this to be 70 years of age and still causing harm, suffering, and pain to so many people? And why did they do that? So I spent the weekend writing up about it, doing my notes, and what I first did was I compared John Gilligan with the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, and I wanted to see what kind of similarities did they have. So, firstly, both have a rough upbringing. That at some point in their childhood, their society failed them, and they discovered that immorality and wicked acts in their community can bring opportunity that can profit from. So, what I was going on there is they were brought up in very dismal communities. For Putin, according to the book by Adu Kasparov about him, is one of the early stories about Putin that he used to be called Rat Boy because apparently he used to go out hunting rats in his community. Later on, he was recruited into the KGB. He rose to the rank of colonel, and he went on to run the KGB in Berlin, East Berlin. And through that organization, he was trained up on things like psychological warfare, kidnapping people, manipulating people, and basically using people. And for him to get where he is today, he manipulated himself into becoming the mayor of St. Petersburg. He manipulated himself to becoming the president of Russia. And for the 30 years or so afterwards, he has been manipulating on a world uh, basis. He's been playing down all the democratic systems that have been brought in, like the United Nations, um, World Health Organization, a whole scatter of international communities with Russia on the top seat. And it's just a disgrace. And the whole point of that is to bring down the organizations from the inside. And I suppose that's about as far as you can go as a wicked person, as an evil person. Getting back to John Gilligan, he was brought up in a place called Ballymun, which is in Dublin. During the 60s and 70s, it was a particularly dismal period of time. There was economic stagnation, and no doubt from an early age, he would have come in contact with drug addicts and drug abusers. And instead of becoming one himself, he figured, well, maybe this is my ticket out of here. And once he realized that once he gets you hooked on heroin or cocaine, you're a loyal customer for life and it's guaranteed income. So, as a consequence of that, he grew up um, ruthless and immoral, and he would have dealt with his rivals, and he was a quiet guy, somebody working in the background, the shadow in the background. Even worse, he was the shadow of the shadow in the background, manipulating everything from behind the scenes. For these guys, both believe image is everything, and they have narcissistic qualities about them. You have plenty of examples of Putin showing himself off to be the strong man, the intelligent man, the man in charge, the man in power of everything. It's a very overt. He's a very overt kind of man. He likes everybody to believe that he is strong, and that is where his power comes from. The day everybody realizes that he is a very, very weak man is the day he loses everything. Um, Likewise for Gilligan, from watching the movie, he's portrayed as a very brutal man, and he's constantly out and about, um, going to casinos and going to parties and things like that, and he's he's portraying a character of strength, and anybody who dares to defy him will soon feel his wrath. Um, Gilligan would be different from Putin in that he doesn't like people seeing what he gets up to, and he's a more covert narcissistic. And for that reason, if it wasn't for Veronica Guerin, if it wasn't for that journalist finding out what he was doing and outing him, that guy, I've no, I left that video with full confidence that if that guy had not been caught, he would still be supplying heroin to Ireland today, and he would have everybody in his pocket. I've no doubt of that. Moving on, both have an uncanny intellect for using people and situations to their advantage. For Putin, you see it on the world stage. Every time something like the Olympics or Sochi Olympics or some big event happens, it's usually followed by an invasion of Chechnya or an invasion of Georgia or an invasion of Ukraine. Putin likes to, when he has to do something big, he waits for the world to be distracted before he plays out his plan. And obviously, um, when we were all coming out of COVID some 2 years ago, for us, we were all thinking about going back to a normal life. But this guy was actually planning, now is the time. Now the West is at its weakest. Now I can take over Europe. And he was like, at the beginning of the invasion of Ukraine, he was spitting out all sorts of rubbish and lies, and he had me convinced that they were going to keep going until they hit Paris. Um, as for Gilligan, the movie portrays him as very brutal in his methods of making people do what he wants them to do. Particular example, John Trainer, who was another cohort of his. Um, John Trainer was friendly with Veronica Guerin, and Gilligan basically made Trainer tell Guerin that Michael Hutch was behind all the drug dealing that was going on in the area, and the idea was that there would be a gang war, and after the gang war, um, Gilligan would be in control of the crime and drugs in Dublin. Both rely on a world of moral and just people because we are predictable and therefore easy to manipulate. We are. It's funny because the more regulated our world becomes, the more opportunistic it is for evil people to plan, to create diabolical plans around the lives of us ordinary people. Us ordinary people, we just want a peaceful life. We just want to get on with our lives. However, these guys know that we want to have a stable, predictable lifestyle, and they are hell bent on disrupting our lives to the benefit of theirs. And we see plenty of examples of that with Putin. And again with Gilligan, he was very notorious. He was feared in the Irish underworld. He was a feared person. Nobody wanted to even speak his name because they knew that if he got upset, everybody was going to suffer. So even the drug dealers were very careful about using his name, and nobody wanted anybody to find out what he was doing. Um, Both have practiced their skill to the point that like they are way better than us. However, once you realize what they are doing, they too become predictable, and you can learn how to counter them and out them. Well, this happens when you think about it when they were young, when they started learning how to manipulate people when they were young. They were never caught up on it. Nobody ever found out about them. So they felt free to practice and practice and practice to a point that they knew exactly how to. They'd find your soft spot, and they'd be able to manipulate you to do whatever they want you out of it. Um, it looks like when a narcissist person takes control, it looks like that they are actually in control, and they are omnipotent and they can control everything. But in reality, when you really, really look at them, you realize they have only one or two skills, and they're using that to their best of their knowledge. Basically, it's to put down the strong person in the room and to promote the weak person in the room, to the point that they can manipulate the situation to their advantage. So once you realize that they're putting people down and promoting people up, you can out them and you can say, look, I see what you're doing here. You're putting me down so that you look better amongst the rest of us. And straight away, by outing them, they lose their power straight away. And it's very hard for them to get it back. Unfortunately, Putin didn't have anybody to out him, and Gilligan likewise. Nobody was there to stop them. Both are hardliners, pushing their agenda as far as they can get away with it. Again, they've only one or two skills. I was shocked to realize that even after he's 71 years of age and he's still actually in the drug business in Spain. The Spanish they did a documentary on him as well. He's still into the import and export of drugs, and again, it's all he knows. It's all they know, and they'll just keep doing it until somebody literally cuts the hands off them or something. You know, it's unfortunate that we have to think about the death penalty for those kind of people, but there really is no way, because both of them will not stop until they either reach the top or they die trying. So what's the consequence of a world of evil? All right. Well, when you consider if they were ever to take control over the world, what would that feel like? Well, firstly, it's a very claustrophobic world because you are under complete control, right? You've got your surveillance state, people are locked down regularly, your movements are recorded, and you're basically living a life in a prison. You've no choice but to do as you're told. I mentioned that in an earlier podcast about the ordinary Russian people, and they have no choice. They're basically paid to promote war in their own communities, and if they don't promote the war, then they don't get paid, and they will simply fall into destitution. So people are basically livestock. They're kept in fear. There's barriers preventing them from going too far. There's no law really. It's basically permission. You have to ask permission to do whatever, to go wherever and do whatever. You can't really do what you like. Brutality is encouraged. Loyalty is rewarded. It can be an exciting life, but it is really the life of a chicken in the slaughterhouse. You don't know when you're going to be next. So, in order to get on in that world, you have to learn to take control over other people. You have to be the bully. You have to be the hard person. And if you're strong enough a bully, you'll be recognized as such. And then they'll encourage you to be as bad as you can. And eventually, you'll find yourself in the orbit of that narcissistic, evil leader. And at that stage, you have no idea how much riches and rewards are available to you. You will lead a very fascinating lifestyle. It should be incredible. Super yachts, parties all the time. But there's only one thing. You're dreading that day you get a phone call from himself telling you to do something so repugnant that once you do it, you'll want to go back on the party line again, because you have to, the fear of knowing that, if you displease that person, you know, you're just going to disappear. People with morals are expected to keep the balance. People with morals, they just want a peaceful life. They won't, and the narcissistic evil person, they won't let you have anything unless they're allowed to stay in power. So what I'm trying to say there is the vast majority of people just want a stable, peaceful life. And when times are good, everybody is fine. But when things start to fall apart, the ordinary people have to work harder to maintain a balance, to maintain some semblance of normalism. And those evil people, they just know that they can take advantage of that. So when things get rough, they just simply get rougher. And the good people, the moral people, just have to work hard and suck it up and take where it's going. There will always be just enough moral people to counteract evil because they are older, wiser, and they don't want society to break down. But as time goes on, society breaks down and subsequent generations become less moral and more feral. Uh, this is me really reaching out there. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that, there'll always be a large group of people trying to keep the balance going there. And normally, they're the older people among us, the wiser people, the people who actually remember the good times. And they will work harder and harder as time goes on to keep things normal. However, when they're gone, there's a hole in society and everything starts to fall apart then. So, what can we do to preserve, prevent, and promote such an evil world? Well, first thing I came across is evil people hate things that bring us together, so they can try to make it small and take it away from us. So, what I'm trying to say there is anything that brings us together, be it religion or politics or economics, we're like anything that brings people together is anathema to these guys. They realize that if once we start forming our own structures without them, then their power structure is in danger, as in threat. Threat. So they will do anything to have none of that kind of thing going on. And you see that in Russia now, like their economics has gone to hell altogether. The religion is, or the Russian Orthodox religion is basically being run by the KGB, and the politics. There's nobody there to counteract Putin. There's nobody there to defy him. So literally, that society is falling apart. What can we do to prevent it? We can respect our history, sport, and culture. Um, by paying attention to the history. You see, evil people, they absolutely hate history because once when you keep reminding them of, like the path they're traveling down, we've been down that path so many times before. And there's so many examples of it, both in Ireland and around the world. There's just so many instances where people were led down the wrong path by an evil person. And those people, they don't like being reminded. And as soon as you start spouting history to them, they switch off, they cave, because they simply can't. They have no power. You take away the power when you do that. Only strong institutions with enough older, wiser, kinder people prevent a person or a group of persons from turning things immoral and wicked. So, what I'm trying to say there is we should really pay attention to religion. We should really pay attention to politics and to economics. Um, by focusing on those institutions, by promoting those institutions, what we're doing is we're creating pillars, because you can't go toe to toe with these guys. They're dangerous. They really are. And if you go toe to toe with one person, yeah, you're probably going to either end up being a victim, or you're going to be ended up going to prison yourself. So you can't take them on toe to toe. If there's a gang of them, you have no hope. You know, that's where you need guards. That's when you need the army. That's when you need government. Okay? Morality and wicked acts must be spotted and reported and gotten rid of immediately. For as long as we have immoral people out there doing nasty things to people, all they're doing is inciting more immorality and more wicked acts. So it doesn't, whatever situation you find yourself in, the worst thing we can be doing is adding fuel to that fire. John Gilligan and Vladimir Putin were children once, okay? If the society that they were in was strong enough to care and teach for them the right way, their talents would have made incredibly valuable contributions to society today. For the evil people that are out there, listen to my podcast. There is no redemption for you. There really isn't. You know, you've crossed the line. You've gone way too far. And there's no way. That's why a lot of criminals like the mafia, they're really big into their own religion. They're big into Christianity because they want to believe that at some point they can be redeemed. And that took me on to even further down a spiral. So here we go. To commit a crime is to go way too far, right? A junkie, a dealer, or a mafia can only be dealt with by qualified, impartial professionals. They can't be dealt with by a volunteer or a group of volunteers. And what I'm trying to say there is if somebody has, we all get addicted to alcohol, we get addicted to sugary food, we get addicted to chips and the like. And yeah, you can rehabilitate yourself from that. But if somebody falls prey to the likes of fentanyl or cocaine or heroin, you know, that's a problem for life. You know, even after you rehabilitate them, they will always be susceptible to falling back into it. And that, as a volunteer, if you're trying to look after one person, it is too much on you to sacrifice so much time, so much effort on one person. And likewise, the junkie is not looking at you as their savior. They see you as somebody they can depend on. And they know that every time they fall back into their habit, that you'll be there to pull them out. And that's not good for you, and it's not good for them either. When it comes to drug dealers, people who run those organizations, you know, you have to avoid them too, because you can't go toe to toe with them. Those people are in a totally different world from the rest of us. Their world is claustrophobic. It's full of rules, full of controls. And if you go toe to toe with them, they will, you won't survive it. You know, they'll escalate. And so a dealer can only see you as a potential customer. So there's a threat there. So you have to stay away from them. When you go further up to mafia kingpins, crime bosses, we'd love to spit at them on the street. You would love to, but you can't. You simply can't. They're beyond our reach. Um, to us, to them, they see us as livestock, nothing more. They see us as an opportunity for their profits. We're profit margins to them. And if we consider ourselves anything more than that, then we're fooling ourselves. There's no way we can touch those guys directly. We can't directly touch any of them. So what can you do with those guys? Well, again, it's all about supporting the institutions that we have available to us. I mean, if you get involved with politics, even by voting in to enable the guards to sort out those situations, um, even offering a prayer, because really there is no other way around it. There is no way you on your own can ever deal with um, drug dealers, drug mafia. You can't. It's a totally different world. So furthermore, violence is what happens before you cross the line. So before you cross the crime, before you do a crime, there's the violence side of it. And it can be verbal abuse, it could be physical abuse, it could be mental abuse. And it becomes even more violent when more people join in. So the only real way you can properly diffuse violence is through promoting peace through grace, humility, and mercy. A peaceful society is full of people who are meek, innocent, and humble. So what I'm trying to say there is you can't add fuel to the fire. You're only dropping yourself into that equation, the violence equation then. So what you really need to do is you have to put a full stop to it. And you literally, when you witness violence, you literally have to put a stop. You have to be firstly grateful that you are not part of the violence. You have to be humble in that you have to say to yourself, I'm not the problem here. I will not make myself become the problem here. And mercy. You have to give the violent people the space to realize that what they're doing is causing detriment to everybody. You're not the only person who sees the injustice in this. The whole world can see it now. So when you say the whole world, a peaceful world. What is a peaceful world? A peaceful world feels free. You have a whole range of options, and you make choices when you are ready, willing, and able to do so. You can have an opinion. You can have a good opinion, bad opinion, or an ugly opinion. But when you do have an opinion and you find yourself in disagreement, you don't feel that your life is in danger. Okay? And everyone who around you who hears your opinion and don't quite disagree with it, don't quite agree with it, they'll just give you time and space so that you can form a better opinion. So you're given the time and the space to figure out for yourself, am I heading in the right direction? Okay? And there, you can stray. You can stray from the law. You can even push at the law's boundaries. But the law under contention is either not strong enough and therefore the boundary is pushed back, or the law is resilient. And what I'm trying to say there is that in a free society, in a peaceful world, you can see the law. You can see how far you can take it. And if you push far enough without breaking the law, you are creating opportunities to adventure, to find new ways of looking at things. Now, there is a cost to holding an averse hardline point of view, because that's what you're doing. If you're pushing against the law, you're using a hardline point of view to push. But there is a benefit to doing that. because by pushing it out, okay, if it is indeed a good way, a just way, maybe you're breaking new law, you're not breaking the law, but you're breaking into a whole area that people have never ventured out in before. Okay, and if it's wrong, it's wrong. You'll break the law, and you're in the wrong side of it, and that's fine. You just find your way back. But if you are pushing against that law, and people around you are starting to say, "Do you know, yeah, you're onto something there. We'll see how far you can take it without breaking the law," then what you're actually doing is you're pushing that law and making it consensus. You're making more people aware of it and tuning into it. And in doing so, that becomes a mainline liberal view. In other words, you've pushed society in a direction, and society in general is open to that particular direction as long as you're not breaking any rules, and you find, oh, there's a whole new frontier there to be explored. So you need to have, in a peaceful world, you will see those opportunities, and you will find the confidence to be able to hunt them down, fight to push them through, and venture out into that new frontier. And by doing so, you're creating a better society, a more developing society. Now, the people who can do that, you have to be very intelligent. I'm not smart enough to do that kind of thing, but I'm sure there's people out there who, if they were given the right confidence to strike out there, they'll do us all proud. Um, Another paragraph: being a soldier, Garda, or emergency services means you have to deal with evil and violence, and so it is very important to be aware of the line, to operate on the right side of it, and to understand and appreciate the overall objective. And it takes a great many skills and talents to be an integral part of an organization, and that involves a lot of wisdom, practice, and experience. Again, I suppose it's my military enthusiast um, idea that, like, from a young age, to learn to realize the importance of law, the importance of institutions to counter evil. We're preventing war. Being a volunteer involves working and sacrificing time, effort, and stressing for the greater good. When there is enough support for volunteering, it's rewarding, it's inspiring, and it's even fun. But when hardline issues and opinions arise, and a confrontation seems to be the only way forward, then that experience flips in the opposite direction. And this is my own personal opinion on what's happening ever since we've come out of COVID, in that um, not a lot people like the ideas or the things that I volunteer in. People like to see those activities being run in the community. However, if there isn't enough support for it, you find yourself alone. And if you're finding yourself alone, or you're attracting the wrong, or not, I wouldn't say attracting the wrong people. I'd say that if you're finding people with hardline views that are at odds with your own, then there's an awful lot of stress involved. And yeah, there's four ways you can do. When they push you, you can either go with it, or you can push back, or you can run away, or you could just fall over. And that's a cautionary tale, because people with high stress intensity almost double their risk of a stroke compared to non-stressed individuals. Volunteering is stressful if it's done wrong. Okay, if you're finding yourself fighting, then you're not volunteering, you're fighting. So be mindful of that. When faced with such individuals and their need for confrontation, you have to consider three things. Hardliners need space to realize that they can't go it alone, and they need your support. There's always time available, and the volunteer takes things in their own good time. So when you're pushed, you either give way, you push back, you run away, or fall over. But all four options are on the table, and you need to practice them regularly, including the falling over bit. Yeah, you don't need to have a stroke. Just simply say, I'm sick of this. I'm walking away from this for a while. Okay? So, particularly long one tonight. Um, it really pushed some boundaries for myself, a lot of frontiers, and I suppose that's why I like doing these podcasts, because when you get to, when, like, I suffered depression there a few months ago, and um, you could spend all your time going through podcasts and YouTube clips and how not to be depressed and how to get around depression. But it's only when you actually express, when you learn how to express things, um, it all starts to come together. So that's all I have to say tonight. Happy Halloween.